Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee hosted by Basildore District Council. I should explain that legislation passed back in March enables council committees to meet in this way rather than to be in one place to reach a decision. So we are legal this evening. We have one application tonight, which we will get to as quickly as we can, but we do have some business to conduct first. And the first of those is to make sure that we're all connected. So I'm going to do a roll call, first of members. So Councillor Brand, are you present?
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Challoner.
Present, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Charlesworth.
Present, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Oxby.
Present, Chair, thank you.
Cheers. Councillor Quigley.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Sanders.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Schiller.
Present, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
Present, Chair, thank you.
And I'm Councillor Pidwell, the chair of tonight's meeting. So that means there are 11 councillors present tonight, and it will be us who will vote on the application in due course. We also have a number of officers to assist us tonight. So I'd like to introduce the clerk of the committee, Mr. Lavender.
Present, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lavender's role is to take the minutes and to record the vote. The facilitator for tonight, to make sure that all the connections remain in working order, is Ms. Hensley.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. We also have the Planning Development Manager, Mr. Krozak, with us, I hope.
I'm present, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And the Council's Legal Officer, Mr. Wormwold.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. So, Happy New Year to you all. And also to any, if we have any regular listeners, Happy New Year to you as well. If during the meeting we do happen to lose connection, and by and large we don't these days, but if we do, the meeting will be adjourned for 5 minutes to re-establish a link, and then I will reconvene. Okay, so the first item on the agenda tonight is apologies.
We have received apologies from Councillor Tomlinson, Chair.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 2 is to receive declarations of interest by members and officers. First of all, by members. Do we have any?
Thank you, Chair. We've received a declaration of interest from Councillor Challoner. It's a pecuniary interest in agenda item 6C, the planning application. So Councillor Challoner will leave the meeting for that item.
Thank you. And there are no declarations by by officers?
No, Chair.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 3 then is minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday the 9th of December last year, pages 5 to 12 in your agenda. I will assume that they are a true record unless anyone wishes to abstain or vote against. So I will pause to see if we have any. Okay, so I will take those as a true record of that meeting. Agenda item number 4 is minutes of the planning consultation group meetings held between the 30th of November and the 14th of December last year, pages 13 to 16 of your agenda. These minutes are provided for information. Agenda item number 5 on page 70 is the outstanding minutes list. and you'll see that the two actions there for implementation later this year. Agenda item number 6A is the public interest test. Nurse Beverley Alderton Sandbrook, Head of Regeneration, has deemed that all the reports on the agenda are not confidential. So the first report is Agenda 6B, which is an appeal decision. And we received one since we last met. And in a minute, I'm going to ask Mr. Krodak just to sort of go through and explain how the inspector saw that application. But you will, I'm sure you all remember, because we discussed it 3 times this site last year and voted on it twice. The site up at Rhodesia, 127 or 128 houses on land on the edge of the village, and the officers recommended that we approve it, but twice we overturned that decision, and the developer Gleeson's appealed. And I'll ask Mr. Krodak if you can just talk us through the inspector's thinking on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So, as you're all aware, the application related to a parcel of land to the west of Queen Elizabeth Crescent in Rhodesia, and the proposal was for 128 dwellings across the site. The application was refused by the committee for 2 reasons. The first reason related to the off-site highway impact of the development, and stated that the Bassett Law local plan transport study update demonstrates that the traffic generated by the development in combination with other planned development in Worksop would cumulatively have a significant impact upon the surrounding road network. The decision of the inspector sets out that the transport study should not be used to inform planning decisions. And a direct quote from the decision is, "The primary objective of this study is to ensure that transport infrastructure does not constrain local plan growth and that appropriate new provision is made where necessary. It is intended to underpin strategic decisions, not to test the suitability of individual planning applications." Reason 2 related to the local primary school catchment area having insufficient capacity to accommodate the pupils generated by the development, and it was considered this would lead to a shortfall in primary school places. However, the County Council stated that a contribution would not be required in their consultation response to the resubmitted application that was considered by the committee after this one, and the inspector placed weight on this evidence and concluded that no contributions toward education provision would therefore be required. And the inspector, as Councillor Pidwell has already stated, determined to allow the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any member who wishes to talk about this subject?
Yes, David, it's Jill Freeman.
Oh yes, Councillor Freeman, yeah.
Yeah, is there any costs applied to the council for this? Do we know?
I'm pretty certain there aren't. No cost notice was published anyway.
There's no costs in the papers. What we've got.
No.
Just to clarify, Councillor Freeman, the appellant didn't make a claim for an award of costs, so that's why there hasn't been a cost decision published.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah. Anyone else wishes to speak?
If I may, Chair, Councillor Sanders.
Oh yes, yes, please do.
Thank you, and thank you, John, for your explanation of the ruling. But just picking up on the transport aspect of it, and it talks about our BDC transport study, and the primary objective of it being what you quoted earlier. Isn't it a strategic thing that we do look at planning applications as a whole, especially in that area where you have the Dormer Wood site, you have the site off of Tilden Road, and now the site off Queen Elizabeth Crescent that's being built, which has more than doubled the size of the village in respect of the amount of housing that's there. Do you actually find one of the comments in the report a little bit strange when it talks about the only roundabout being affected is the roundabout where the McDonald's is, the Sandy Lane roundabout, as he's calling it, because there is actually nowhere else for the traffic to either go left towards the Millhouse roundabout or right towards Shire Oaks and up to the roundabout that we talked about being modified because of other applications that's being built in Shire Oaks. I mean, if you also look at the Shire Oaks Road, you've also got the development in Shire Oaks that feeds onto that road as well. So is that not, is that something that you cannot take into consideration, the cumulative impact of other developments in the area? And I just find, again, a little bit strange that our transport study doesn't carry the same weight as the one from the applicant, which only looked at that specific roundabout. So that doesn't sit well with me in the respect of that. And if I may, just on the education side of things, we spoke about this application twice in committee last year, once in April and once, I think, in September, October time. Forgive me if I'm wrong in that, but I know there were two. In one, the first application, it talked about there being a shortfall of 18 places at the Hagginfield School. In the second application, lo and behold, there was no request for any contribution towards places at the school. Now, reading through the report, that decision was made in June 2020, and I'm at a loss to understand what changed over that period of time. So, if I may, Chair, I'd like to propose that we ask officers from the relevant departments at county to actually come to committee as part of a training package, whatever you want to call it, to actually explain how they actually come to the decisions that they come to, because it would aid me in understanding why the changes were made and how they come to these conclusions, and maybe aid us all a little bit in making more informed decisions. Thanks, Chair.
Right, thank you very much for that considered feedback. I will ask Mr. Krozak to deal with those points in a minute. But in terms of training, in all fairness to officers, that they've been trying for as long as I can remember to get people from education and from highways to come and speak to us in person. Obviously, we'd be a bit more difficult at the moment, although we can do it virtually. And the best we've had in that time is that written paper from highways, which went out sometime last year. I can't remember exactly, perhaps early autumn, explaining their role and how they go about their decisions. That's the best we've had, I'm afraid. Mr. Krozak and I are going to renew attempts to see if we can book them in for the annual planning that the new committee from May 21 will do. Will have to do. So we're going to try and get them in for that event. So, Mr. Krozak, do you want to pick up any of the other points that Councillor Sanders raised?
Yeah, obviously, Councillor Sanders has raised concerns about the cumulative impact of traffic generated by several developments on the surrounding highway network. The applicant does submit a transport statement or full transport assessment in support of their application, where the application is likely to generate a high volume of vehicular movements. The scope of that is agreed with the Highway Authority, and if that's just submitted cold, or the Highway Authority doesn't feel that like it robustly assessed certain junctions within the vicinity of the site, or it has missed certain committed developments from its study, they will raise concerns regarding that and ask the developer to reassess the situation and the impact on the surrounding highway network. I think we're not dismissing the transport study altogether. It is used as an evidence base for individual transport assessments, but the scope of those assessments is agreed with the Highway Authority. So that's why the inspector's placing so much weight on that. And I think the reasoning here is the Highway Authority didn't object to the off-site impact of this development and the cumulative impact. But in response to your question, yes, we always have to take into account cumulative impact. And where there is cumulative impact, sometimes we have to mitigate that impact through Section 106 contributions. And where the impact can't be mitigated, it would lead to a refusal of planning permission. In terms of the education position, I do appreciate that it was of a great concern to members at the time. We were aware of that as officers, and we did push the County Council very strongly for an explanation. But I think the explanation was made at committee, and the County Council were adamant that education contribution wasn't required to mitigate the impact of this development. In terms of training, I think it would be useful for the Highway Authority and the contributions team to maybe make a presentation to yourselves at the annual training. I know that there's a new contributions officer at the County Council who started in the autumn of last year, so I'll be more than happy to engage and see if we can get that training set up for the annual training event in May.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding, I think, was next to indicate a wish to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Sanders has very eloquently put many of the points that I was going to raise. This school is the school at Rhodesia Primary is an academy, and certainly the academy trust that is running that school is making representations to the county over this issue. As I say, they are extraordinarily concerned over the issue over the education contributions not being pursued for that particular site. But as I say, I have asked for an explanation on it as well, because as I say, clearly you've got a whole lot of housing that's going into Rhodesia, and if the provision at school isn't correct, particularly when you've got a significant amount of that population haven't got access to transport, we're going to really have difficulties, which is why, as I say, concerns were raised at committee. But obviously, the inspector has to take into account what the Education Authority has said, and I feel that the Education Authority has let down Rhodesia. Big style. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, well, thank you. I should explain for any viewers that Councillor Fielding is a member for Rhodesia and other parts, so had a keen interest in this matter. Councillor Brand, you wish to speak, I believe.
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. I just wanted to support the proposition that we should incorporate particularly education and highways and how they make their decisions into our training, our mandatory training in May. I think for me, of all the statutory consultees whose reports we read in whole or in summary, I think it's those two that for me often come up with the most perverse decisions. So yeah, I would welcome that, and thank you for taking that forward.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? No, okay. Well, just to put this into context, since we were formed as a committee 2 years ago in May 2019, 4 of our overturns have gone on to the inspectorate. 2 of those decisions were upheld by the inspector, and this one and the site at Longholm Road in Retford, which you may remember, the inspector did not support our view. So we got a 50-50 result at appeals, which isn't bad at all. And I think the other thing we have to make clear is that this decision and the inspector's thinking isn't binding on us going forward. Although no doubt I think there are lessons to learn. And I mean, for me, the thing that links this decision and Longholm Road was that the evidence was very strongly in favour of the developer. For Longholm Road, we could not find any evidence at all that traffic was going to be severely increased as a result of the 60 houses on Longholm Road. And in this case, when the county council say we don't need contributions towards primary education, it is very difficult for anyone to argue against that, because they have the statutory responsibility for identifying places going forward. On the issue of cumulative impact, I can't remember if it was Mr. Krozak's commentary or the inspector himself who made a distinction between 106 contributions and seal contributions. What 106 contributions have to be related to the impact of that particular development, whereas I know that we were concerned about the big number of developments in Rhodesia. They've all come at once, and of course further afield in Shire Oaks, where there's been 2 or 3 major developments, and cumulatively their traffic will have an impact on the roundabout at well, he says Sandy Lane, but we know it as perhaps McDonald's. So any changes to the any improvements to the roundabout at McDonald's would come out of seal money, because each of those developments, as far as I know, have made seal contributions, as will Gleeson's in due course. And perhaps I had a quick look at the officer's report this afternoon. There's no mention of how much money seal site can generate. Now, it was a full application, so we should be able to work out roughly what the seal contribution would be, because it's based on square meterage. And I know there's some problems down the line that developers can appeal against seal on viability issues, but leaving that to one side, it might have been helpful if we'd had a ballpark figure of how much this site was going to contribute to our seal budget, because I guess it'd be fairly substantial, and some of that money could well go into highways improvements. So I have suggested to Mr. Kozak he might want to think about that, and in future, if it's possible, how much still might come our way from any future developments. So yeah, that's what I took from it. So unless anyone else wants to speak, I will move on. one matter that isn't on the agenda, which I'll just throw in now. We had a training opportunity to visit a near completed site in Beckenham on Station Road, a site that we gave permission some 3 years ago, I think. That was scheduled for middle of January. That will now have to be put off because of the national lockdown. The developer is understanding of that, and we will get another date as and when we are permitted to do that visit and when it's safe to do so. So I think it was the 14th of January, so you can scrub that out of your diaries for those of you who wanted to come. And I'm grateful that there were several people who did. Okay, then, so we will move on then to the Harworth planning application. This is concerning land located south of Scrooby Road and north of Snape Lane, Harworth. And it's an outline application with all matters reserved for the construction of up to 1,300 dwellings, a public house or restaurant, public open space, associated access and into and out of the site, proposed estate road and associated interest. And the officer's report can be found starting at page 33, but I will invite Mr. Kozak to summarise the application, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, before we do, I should explain that Mr. Challoner, Councillor Challoner, is leaving the meeting, and
he has left, Chair.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So over to you, Mr. Kozak.
John, I think you're muted.
John, can you unmute your mic?
Apologies. I'll try again.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, John.
Is everybody able to view the slides on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Thank you. This is an outline application with all matters reserved for the construction of up to 1,300 dwellings, a public house and restaurant, public open space, associated remediation, access and egress into and out of the site, and a proposed estate road and associated infrastructure. The application site is the former Harworth Colliery. Part of the former colliery site has already been developed with new housing and a supermarket, which were built under a previous permission. Works are currently ongoing on part of the adjacent land where the new housing is being built to provide some of the already approved infrastructure for the site and also to remediate the land to its former use before it can be safely developed. This slide shows the application site outlined in red and shows how the site lies in the context of the settlement, with the main urban form of Harworth lying to the north of the site. This slide shows the indicative layout of the scheme and shows how the site could be developed. Access into the site is already in place from the improved junction just outside the Asda store on Scrooby Road, and access will also be provided from the existing access point from Blythe Road. The indicative layout plan shows a park area to the west of the housing and also a green area on the eastern boundary of the site, as well as a green landscaped area at the end of the entrance road, which extends into the site from the junction with Scrooby Road. Just turning to the site characteristics, this is a view looking south from the access road into the site from the adjacent Asda Superstore. This is a view looking south from the access road into the site with the former colliery site directly ahead. This is a view looking east along the estate road within the site. This is a view looking south within the application, with the application site directly in front. This is a view looking west with the application site behind the security fencing. This is a view looking through the security fencing onto the now remediated site. This is a view looking west into the site. This is a view of the site looking in a southwesterly direction. And this is taken from within the site looking in a southerly direction. This is a view looking southeasterly. And this is a view looking west into the site from Blythe Road. So this is the point of access that I referred to previously. Turning to the report, consultee comments are set out on pages 36 to 39. It should be noted that there are no objections from statutory consultees other than Nottinghamshire County Council, who raised an objection as it had been demonstrated that the scheme would be unviable with a policy compliant planning obligation. However, since the publication of the report, the County Council have withdrawn their objection, and this will be addressed in full shortly. Harworth Town Council have written in support of the application. In terms of comments from members of the public, one letter has been received that raises concerns about the proposal, and these concerns are summarised on page 39 of the report. In terms of the principle of the development, pages 40 and 41 set out that policy CS1 is considered to carry limited weight in the decision-making process. However, Harworth and Burcoats has a made neighbourhood plan which provides a clear growth strategy for the settlement, and one of the main objectives of the plan is to redevelop the old colliery site, delivering a mixed-use development that would benefit the local community now and for years to come. Significant weight can be given to the neighbourhood plan in the consideration of this scheme, and it's considered that the principle of the development is acceptable, and it should be noted that the site does benefit from an extant planning permission for its redevelopment. In terms of design and layout, the scheme is in outline form with all matters reserved. So matters such as layout, appearance and landscaping will be reserved for consideration at a later stage. The applicant has, however, submitted an indicative master plan which shows how the site could be developed, and this is currently shown on the screen. It is considered that the proposal will have a significant positive benefit, as it will result in the regeneration of the site, which, if not developed, would continue to blight the character and impact negatively on the appearance of the southern part of Harworth going into the future. In terms of highways, access into the site is already in place from the improved junction just outside the Asda store and Scrooby Road, and it's also possible to access the site from the existing access point from Blythe Road. The access routes into the site already have permission subject to the original outline, and subsequent reserved matters applications that are being made for the northern part of the site where the new dwellings have already been built. Page 45 of the report sets out that the Highway Authority raised no objections to the scheme, subject to the imposition of conditions to ensure the highway elements are adequately provided. And Doncaster Metropolitan Borough Council have confirmed that they do not object to the proposal also. In terms of contamination, as the site was formerly a colliery site, contamination of the ground through former mining processes that were carried out is to be expected. Bassett Law District Council confirmed in 2019 that the contamination remediation works that had been carried out were acceptable, and as such it is considered unnecessary now to impose a condition requiring the submission of a further detailed land contamination survey, as this has already been investigated and dealt with by the applicant. Turning to infrastructure contributions and viability of the scheme, the Council's consultees have identified what infrastructure contributions will be required to make the scheme acceptable in planning terms. These requirements are listed on page 47 of the report. The applicant has submitted a viability assessment, and the Council has had this independently reviewed and verified by a viability assessor, who has confirmed that the applicant can only afford £2.04 million worth of contributions if affordable housing is not to be provided within the development. Nottinghamshire County Council previously objected to the scheme as it would not be able to provide all the contributions required to mitigate the impact of the development. Since the publication of the agenda, the County Council have withdrawn their objection to the scheme and have agreed with the applicant that a £3 million contribution would be acceptable to mitigate the impacts arising from the development proposed. The County Council have recommended that this contribution be used towards primary education infrastructure improvements, but have recommended a degree of flexibility be built into this Section 106 agreement to enable any additional funding to be used to fund transport improvements in the area. In addition to this, the report also sets out that the applicant is currently having discussions with Homes England regarding the funding of affordable housing within the development. In conclusion, pages 49 and 50 set out the benefits and harms arising from the scheme and the weight that is considered appropriate to apportion to these in the determination of this application. Clearly, the redevelopment of the former colliery site is supported by the local community due to the significant benefits that it will bring, and this is demonstrated by its inclusion as a specific policy in the neighbourhood plan. However, the benefits need to be balanced against the harm arising from the scheme, namely that the scheme would not be viable with a policy compliant planning obligation that would mitigate the impact arising from the development on the infrastructure of the area. And this will impact negatively on existing residents of Harworth and the new residents of the proposed dwellings. Officers are of the opinion that significant benefits that will arise from the development and the regeneration of this site will substantially outweigh the harm identified, and it is therefore recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement and the conditions outlined within the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Am I right to conclude that there weren't any questions asked on this application? Mr. Bright.
Sorry, Councillor Pidwell, I'm receiving quite a bad connection from yourself. I can confirm there weren't any questions from members submitted pre-committee.
Thank you very much. In which case we can move to the speaker. So we have one name, it's Jan Neville, and she works for our group with the applicants. And are you with us tonight?
Hello, I'm here. Can you hear and see me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hopefully you can see me.
Now we can see you as well. Brilliant. Okay, so you have 3 minutes. We would ask you to keep to those 3 minutes, please, and we will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. So, ready?
No problem. Okay, good evening all and Happy New Year. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight in support of our application. I'm Joanne Neville, I'm the Planning Manager for Harworth Group. Clearly, we are very supportive of the officer's recommendation to committee tonight for a new consent at Simpson Park. This will secure the continued regeneration of this regionally significant brownfield site that we are already committed to delivering, and we think we'll be delivering for the next 10 years. As has already been said, and as you'll be aware, delivery is already well underway, and we've already serviced part of the site and sold land parcels to Jones Homes and Kia for the early phases. If consent is granted tonight, it's our intention to submit a planning application over the next few weeks for our enabling infrastructure. This is the infrastructure works to enable phase 2 to commence. This will be approximately about £5 million worth of enabling works that includes remediation, earthworks and the roads and sewers that will unlock the next 600 units. It's our intention to make a start on site with the delivery of the enabling works during spring this year, and we think it'll take approximately 18 months to deliver. And we'll make this investment because this level of investment is necessary to de-risk the site and to attract large house builders to the site to deliver the next 600 homes. And we envisage that these will be built and occupied from next year onwards. Whilst the site is a challenging site to deliver, given its previous use, we've worked hard to put together a package of Section 106 money to mitigate the impacts of the development. Our appraisals and cost plan have been verified externally by the district valuer, and unfortunately our Section 106 pot does not include the delivery of affordable housing, as John Crozick's just outlined. But we will continue to work with Homes England and their partners to discuss alternative ways of delivering affordable housing on this site. As the planning officer has set out, we've been able to reach agreement with the county council such that they will withdraw their objection to our application, as we've subsequently agreed to commit a further £1 million to the Section 106 pot to enable additional education delivery at the Silby Park Academy. We've been able to do this by further reducing our profit margins across the scheme, as we recognise the long-term nature of this scheme. And this brings our Section 106 pot to £3 million. The planning officer has provided a comprehensive report which addresses in detail all material considerations and recommends that planning permission should be granted, and we fully endorse this conclusion.
Thank you very much. So it's now open for members to ask questions, and as usual, I will go around it alphabetically and see if members do have questions. Starting with Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. A question and a comment. My comment is, I find it very disappointing that a site of this size can't manage some affordable housing. You know, I think the estimated number was 30 to 50. If they can't manage that, I would have liked to see, you know, perhaps a lesser number. And I think the council's strategic housing department have objected on that basis. I think I'm right in saying that. So that's my observation. My question relates to the wood that's on the east of the site. And I think, John, you indicated, I think it was your third slide, indicated that remains untouched by this development. I'm not a tree hugger, but I do like to see trees, and I don't like to see them chopped down. So can we just be assured that the trees are remaining?
Yeah, that area does form part of the wider open space within the site. And there is a condition imposed or proposed that states that the reserve matters applications, so the detailed applications, should be in accordance with that master plan. So we would anticipate that the open spaces within the indicative master plan will remain as you've just seen.
Thank you.
Okay. So Charles, do you have any questions or comments at this stage?
It's just a comment to back up Councillor Brand. I'm a bit disappointed that there's no affordable housing of a site this size. That's a concern that I think could be relooked at if they can.
Thank you. For Fielding.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I too, I'm disappointed over the affordable housing, but I think we all are. Correct me though if I'm. But there's been an independent viability assessment done, which backs up that what is in the pot is the 3 million, and the allocation of it is what is in the proposed 106 agreement.
Yes, so Councillor Field, if I can just clarify, the viability consultant concluded that the scheme would be viable with a Section 106 contribution of just over £2 million. And that was without the scheme delivering any affordable housing. Obviously, it's regrettable that the scheme can't deliver any affordable housing and has a reduced Section 106 contribution, but the nature of the site means that the developer is having to take on an awful lot of remediation to enable the regeneration of this site and its redevelopment. And obviously, if this was a greenfield site, we'd be recommending a refusal of planning permission on the grounds that it wouldn't be making a policy compliant contribution in terms of the planning obligation. But obviously, there are significant regeneration benefits arising from the development of a former colliery site. And the applicant has actually taken a commercial decision to reduce their profit margin on the scheme to allow a further £1 million worth of Section 106 obligation to be made towards education infrastructure in the area. And that is obviously an additional £1 million over and above what the viability consultant considered would be viable with this scheme. But obviously that's a commercial contribution and can be seen to be a very positive move by the developer.
Thank you. Did you want to come back, Councillor Fielding?
No, thank you for that explanation. That was, as I say, I thought it was important that that was clarified.
Chair,
Yeah.
could I just suggest, hi, it's Ellen. Could I just suggest, could you turn your camera off just because we're having a bit of difficulty hearing you, and that might hopefully help clear it up. Ooh, I think you've muted yourself now.
How's that?
I think that's a little bit better for me. Thank you.
Good. I'll carry on then. Councillor Frew, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, just, I quite agree with Mrs. Brand about Councillor Brand about the affordable housing. And can I just make an observation, please? We seem to Harworth seems to be just all houses. There's not much countryside left. Is that going to be the sign of the future? All houses and no countryside. Thank you.
Mr. Crozak, I don't know if you can help us.
Obviously, any further planning applications in Harworth would need to be considered very carefully by the local planning authority and yourselves as the planning committee. This site itself is a brownfield site, as being the former colliery site. Its remediation and decontamination, and obviously, is a substantial financial investment, and the delivery of housing on there is enabling to achieve that remediation. So this site has been identified in the Harworth neighbourhood plan as as an allocated housing site, and its redevelopment is one of the primary objectives within that plan. So yeah, we appreciate the development is more housing in Harworth, but the draft local plan, as being consulted on at the moment, doesn't propose any further housing in Harworth, and yeah, we wouldn't anticipate any substantial growth, but would encroach out further into the countryside surrounding the settlement.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Freeman?
No, I don't want to come back. That's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Oxby, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Chairman. Just one observation, if I may, please, and I'll have no further observations on this topic. What I'm going to say, Chairman, won't prevent me from voting for this, as I believe at the moment, Chairman, there are more advantages than disadvantages to the proposed scheme. I am, Chairman, like other colleagues and friends around the table, immensely disappointed about the affordable housing element. The only comment I can say, Chairman, is unfortunately that's what developers do these days, isn't it? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Quigley, do you have any questions or comments?
Just observation, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah.
The colliery closed in 2006, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and that area of land was always, the ambition was, even going back to then, was to try and develop it for mixed use for housing and commercial use. And certainly when I was leader of the council, we were aiming for that. But obviously the remediation costs of such a site are actually quite horrific. And whilst I'm not keen that we aren't getting any affordable housing, I can fully understand why. Having been involved in similar projects over the years, I can see that if we start insisting on the normal percentage of affordable housing, the whole site becomes unviable, and it's taken from 2006-7 to now to actually get the site developed fully, and it will only improve the infrastructure and everything in Harworth, and I can't honestly see any reason why we shouldn't approve this application.
I'll make it work. I'll find them. Excuse me, we have somebody talking in the background and I can't hear David. Sorry, Chair, but I can't hear anything.
I don't even hear you. Listen, so what difference does it make to you?
I think someone's watching Coronation Street in the background. So it'd be helpful if whoever it was could turn it off, or it might be the Archers, I suppose. But either way, be grateful if you could turn off the radio or TV or whatever it is. Okay.
I think my wife's watching Coronation Street or something. I've shut the door.
Sorry, Councillor Quigley, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. I forgot that if I can hear it in here, it feeds through the microphone.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Perhaps an uninterrupted Councillor Sanders has some questions or comments. I don't know.
Thank you, Chair, but isn't Councillor Richardson before me?
Oh, thank you. You're quite right. Councillor Richardson, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You put me at the bottom of the list in attendance.
I did.
Worrying there. Yes, if it's me, Chair, I have got an observation and a question, please. On page 37, it talks about the waste on the NSCC planning policy, the minerals and waste, if you see that. And they said there's a dormant waste recycling facility to the south of the site. I'm not sure whether John mentioned this before, because I'm sorry, but I had to put the dog out. But it's noted the applicant's noise assessment takes account of this facility and suitable noise applicants is proposed along the southern boundary of the site. Well, if it's dormant, I don't think there's any need for that, really. But on the waste management at the bottom, it advises that the contribution is required towards the building of a new recycling centre, and the current facility was not be capable of accommodating the needs of these. But when I look onto page 53, as a joint effort there, there's a way they discuss all the waste and cycling and how the land is fit then for the land to be used for this. And I looked up because it says Q-Bar Greenfield, which at this time I did not quite understand what it was. If we've ever had it in training, I cannot remember. So I've been looking it up today to see what it was. And just a matter of an observation on this, it relates to the data, which looks at the soil category and the hydrological characteristics for it to be used by the site. So I think there's going to be, there should be an audit done for the waste site by Notts County Council. But I'm just wondering whether it's for this application. It says there is one going to be done, but I'm not sure whether it was for this application. Will that come forward then, John, for when they actually put the next one forward? If this is passed this evening, will Notts County Council then send this audit through for waste?
I think that's that's obviously a procedure that's being undertaken by the county council relating to the growth in Harworth, the waste audit, and the stated that a contributions required from this development of approximately £80,000 to contribute to a new waste and recycling centre. Obviously, the county council did object to the development previously because they felt that it wasn't making a sufficient Section 106 contribution to fund the infrastructure required, and that is one element of the infrastructure required to mitigate the impact of this development. But now the applicant has agreed to make the additional £1 million in contributions to £3 million. The county council are no longer objecting and feel that the contributions could be managed by them to deliver education improvements, any highway improvements, and obviously any improvements to waste and recycling facilities. But obviously that contribution would need to be managed very carefully by the county council.
So sorry, that means then, John, that the audit wouldn't be done at all because there wouldn't be any need for it. Is that correct understanding that?
I don't know the answer to that. I believe it would still be undertaken.
Yeah. All right, so that would go forwards for the next time. If this is approved this evening, it would come forwards in the next report for the next application.
It depends on the type, the nature of the next application.
Yeah.
I think as the planning manager at Harworth stated, I think the next application is going to be simply infrastructure works within the site and facilitating infrastructure and remediation works. So obviously it will be any future applications will need to be considered having regard to the current situation on the ground. So if the county council make any improvements in the intervening period, it might not be necessary.
Yeah, I understand that. It's just that if the site is going to be, if there is a site next to it that needs to be improved, or it's not going to be dormant anymore, I would have thought that an audit would have been necessary, really. That's just my understanding of what it should be, not what it is. And going forward for the next application, I would have thought that would have been a necessary thing to do. But thank you for your comments, John.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sanders.
Thanks, Chair. Could I just ask about the highways section again? There is in the report provision or a request for not far short of £950,000 to make improvements to the mini roundabouts in Harworth, John. Is that now wrapped up as part of the £3 million, or is that being asked for as a SIL payment?
The £3 million is the total Section 106 obligation. The county strategically have had a look at this and how other developments can fund infrastructure in Harworth, including from SIL payments. So they are content, and we have the confirmation that they're no longer objecting based on the £3 million contribution. So I think the primary focus for the county council, as they've confirmed, is the improvement of Selby Park Academy and education provision. Whereas if there are any contributions that can be used for infrastructure, including on the highway network, the county council will use them for that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm quite happy that they're using the £3 million for the education side of things, but it just strikes me that every time that we talk about a development in Harworth and Burcoats, we talk about these two particular mini roundabouts. So is there any plans afoot that you know to, John, to do any remedial works around these particular roundabouts?
The county council as a highway authority are very aware of the issues there. I'm not aware of any formal plans at this moment in time, but I know that they are looking at the wider highway network throughout Harworth and the infrastructure improvements required and that's an ongoing discussion between the Highway Authority via East Midlands, that obviously manage the highways, and the Town Council as well as ourselves as the District Council.
Okay, thanks, John. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Schiller, do you have any questions or comments, please?
I have some comments. I agree with my colleagues that it's regrettable that there aren't any affordable houses on this site. However, the amount of sill that was initially being asked, I did find to be quite a ludicrous amount, and I do have grave concerns that the education monies that are being asked for are all to be delivered to the Silby Park Academy, which in actual fact, this site previously was to hold a primary school. However, we again have lost another promised primary school, and we're moving towards making Silby Park even larger, when the access to that school is absolutely atrocious, with putting children and families at risk every time they access the site. I just find it incredible that we're not looking and being a little bit more forward thinking, rather than just pushing all our monies into one school site that is currently, the access is problematic at best. I do believe that the benefits to this site do outweigh the difficulties of it, because we really do need to redevelop this site. We've had a great deal of opportunistic development in Haworth and Burcoats, and onto greenfield sites as previously discussed. And I do feel that the sill money that was asked in the first instance before by the county was to actually right some of the wrongs in infrastructure. So obviously it's great that we've come to an agreement now, and I commend the officers from Bassetlaw Council for actually working hard to get this sorted out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll go around again, and perhaps people could indicate whether they want to make any further contributions from either now or later. So I'll start with Councillor Brand.
Nothing more from me now or on the next round. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Charlesworth.
Nothing more from me or the next round. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding.
No, nothing more from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
No, nothing more from me. Thank you.
Councillor Oxley's already indicated. Councillor Quigley.
No, nothing more from me.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
Just one thing. I hope that the sill payments stay at the beginning of the application, and they're not ever moved, that the developer pays out at the end when the project is finished. No more questions. Thank you, Chairman.
John, when are still contributions normally made on developments? Do you know?
Section 106 contributions, excuse me, are made in a phased manner in accordance with the agreement. So that agreement's made between the authority, ourselves, Nottinghamshire County Council, and the applicant. Obviously, payments that will be used toward infrastructure such as education have to be made at a time where the county can use them to make the necessary improvements. So they are made in a phased manner to ensure that those improvements can be delivered and that the development isn't stifled in terms of viability. In terms of sill payments, they're also made in a phased manner throughout the development, throughout the phasing of the development.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sanders.
Just a final comment, if I may, Chair. I do understand that it's a regeneration of a brownfield site, an ex-colliery site, but I do have one major concern, and that is the lack of money to go towards mitigating the transport impact on the mini roundabouts. So I would just ask that going forward, that we look at with partners schemes to actually improve the road infrastructure, especially around this area, because as I said earlier, it is something that every time we seem to have an application in Harworth and Burcoats that we talk about this particular junction. So I think it is important that we do look at actually improving that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schuller.
Thank you. Whilst I agree with Councillor Sanders, there does need improvements of these mini roundabouts. I don't think it can come from one developer alone, and I think it's something that we should have been looking at with all of the applications that were previously passed within Harworth and Burcoats. And in regards to the contribution to education, I hope that this will be used to improve the safety of access to the site that we have, as we appear to be forming a rat run through the town to get to one site, and we clearly need the infrastructure of the highways, as Councillor Sanders is pointing out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that completes the contributions and questions from members. So I'll just try and summarise. I mean, I think Councillor Schuller and Councillor Oxby summed it up neatly when they said the benefits of this scheme outweigh the negatives, and the negatives are clearly at the moment the lack of affordable housing and more of a 106 contribution towards infrastructure improvements. A site of this size in Harworth should generate 200 affordable units, and to put that into context, that is 1/17 of the number that Bassetlaw has to find over the next 15-16 years. So it's a huge dent in our ambition to provide sufficient affordable housing for residents across our district. And I can only hope that the discussions with Home England will produce something in respect of affordable housing units. The benefits of the scheme, I think, are outlined on pages 49 and 50 in the table. It is a site supported in the local plan, in the neighbourhood plan, sorry, a site supported by the town council. As Councillor Quigley said, it's been a long time in coming, notwithstanding the smaller developments along Scrooby Road already. But undoubtedly, this is a development that the community want to see, notwithstanding some of the drawbacks. Okay, so Mr. Krasnick, I don't know if you want to make any final comments on anything that I might have missed.
Nothing further from me, thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so I'll go around, hopefully in alphabetical order, and take people's vote. So, Councillor Brand.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Charlesworth.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Oxby.
4. Thank you.
Councillor Quigley.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
4.
Councillor Sanders.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Schiller.
4.
Thank you. And I too am in favour. So that is carried with no abstentions and no one against. So that application is granted. Thank you. That completes tonight's agenda. So thank you for your attendance and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night all.